Thanks so much, Cynthia, for sharing with us today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Melissa, for giving me time to do this. Some of you know that I'm a master trainer and do some of the training for the facilitators. And every year we have to be recertified. So we have a renewal training. And I went through the renewal training in December. And part of that training, they do a small segment called training tips. And I found this topic to be so interesting. And not only was it interesting, but it was so helpful to me as a facilitator with my participants, just understanding more about them and more about myself. And so rather than just have this information in a vacuum, I thought, well, what better place than in this group where we have our facilitators all together so I can share this information with you. And for some of you, it's possibly things you already know. A lot of it you probably do already know, but it's nice to refresh our memories. For me, many of the data that they shared with us was brand new, and it really gave me a better understanding of my participants and also of myself when I'm trying to learn something new. So so with that said, I asked Melissa if I could share this information with everybody, and she graciously let me do that. And she's even gonna put the slides up for me because anybody who knows me knows how I am with technology, and we'll also do a couple brainstormings where she graciously agreed to watch out for the chat and for people raising their hands. So we're going to keep everybody included today. So, and it's interesting that this says to, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, no pressure. Like she said, we're in a safe space here. But if you want to stand up or walk in place, because as we're going to find out, movement can be very helpful to keeping people engaged and keeping people's attention and their engagement and their concentration level. So feel free to do that if you want. Um, and we'll get started. Next slide. So I know this is a crazy question and you're going to think I'm out of my mind and it's a stretch, but you're going to think of something. I know it. So think about your participants. And although the training that I took was for Prevent T2, really facilitation is a universal skill or a universal activity, which it kind of transcends whether you're doing a hypertension class or a nicotine cessation or Prevent T2 or diabetes management. When we think about our trainees, think about whatever kind of a class you may facilitate or work with. Think about your group of participants, and then think about goldfish. And think if you can make any connection between an attribute of a goldfish and maybe of the participants or adult learners in general. Does anybody have a thought on that? Something they have in common. Hmm.
Cynthia, I know from Ted Lasso that goldfish have short memories.
Oh, all
I'm
right.
not sure
There's
if
a
that's in
start.
common.
Okay. They have short memories. So, and isn't it crazy? And that's probably a true statement, right? But how do we know that? I always wonder, how do we find stuff out about goldfish? I guess just like anything else, right? We do research or we watch them. Anybody else? Anybody else have a thought about goldfish?
That they're creatures of habit and they go back to some of the spaces or things that they do.
Interesting. Creatures of habit, right? How many times do we have participants in our classes who maybe they start on this healthy path or a new meal plan or a new exercise plan, but then we're creatures of habit and we go back to what we used to do? And then the memory, right? We had that session topic, but now we forgot all about that new skill we were going to try. Anything else? Hmm. Here's someone rustling. Is somebody have an idea? Oh, it feels, is that it? Is that a chat? Feeling stuck. I think I saw that in the chat.
Yep.
Stuck
yep, you
doing the
did.
same thing, right? Swimming to get your food and then swimming through the castle in the bottom of the fishbowl, whatever it is goldfish do. Well, in another group where I posed this question, some people said that the goldfish feel like they're underwater. They feel like they're trying to swim against the tide or swim upstream. So, as strange as that question seemed, there are connections, just the ones you mentioned about the memory and about feeling stuck and about being creatures of habit. But there's something else that a goldfish and our participants or adult learners in general have in common. And that is that a goldfish, and again, this is supported by research and evidence. A goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. I don't know how they know this. It kind of was driving me crazy trying to think, well, how the heck would they know that? And I thought, well, maybe they actually did time. The goldfish takes a bite of food and then he moves on to something else after 9 seconds. I don't know how they did it, but but they said it, and I believe it. A goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds, and the average adult learner has an attention span of 8.25 seconds. I found that staggering to think that we only pay attention for 8 seconds before our mind moves on to something else. It was interesting to note that our attention span as adult learners used to be 12 seconds. And over the last several years, it actually decreased to 8.25 seconds. And you think, well, that's only a 4 second difference. So that's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because it's 30%. So our attention span has shrunk by 30% over the last several years. Understandably, because we have cell phones, we have email, we have instant everything, text messages where you don't have to wait till tomorrow to hear from something at work. They can text you at 2 in the morning, whatever. So of course, it would make sense that our attention span would be reduced. But what interesting information this is, because now we know a little more about our group of participants, right? We know they have a short attention span. And as I sat in this training, I thought back to when we used to do all the classes in person. And then when the pandemic started, we had to, on short notice, cancel all the classes. And we said, we're going to start them up in a month. And then we said, we're going to start them up in 6 weeks because nobody knew where it was going. You're nodding, Melissa. You remember that, right? And we kept waiting and waiting. And then eventually we said, well, we got to do something different because this isn't ending. And I was the one who raised my hand and said, put me at the bottom of the list because I have no desire to do this virtual class because I couldn't imagine that we could form any kind of camaraderie, have any kind of group cohesion. I couldn't imagine how people would get to know each other, how you would impart the information so people would remember it. And when I think now, if I had known this back then, I would have run screaming from the place. If I knew that people, not only did we have this challenge, but people only have an 8 second attention span, I thought was ridiculous. But knowledge is power. And the more we know, the more that we can do. So now we know that. So now we know our participants have a very short attention span. And if we know something, then chances are we can do something about it. So what are we going to do about it? And here we are at the next slide. We're gonna see a little more about our attention spans. We've got this short attention span, but in addition to that, students lose focus after 10 to 15 minutes of lectures. So think about if you have, and I know some of the programs that you do have an hour and a half or have 2 hours for a session. The Prevent T2 is only an hour, which goes by way too fast. So think about if you have information to present to your group, the average student is going to lose focus after like 10 or 15 minutes. Well, sometimes you have information that's going to take you a long time, maybe to explain high blood pressure or to explain insulin resistance or to explain the aspects of diabetes. But knowing that people really lose focus doesn't mean they're not going to pay attention to you. It doesn't mean they don't hear you, but their mind might wander and they might think about what are they having for dinner and then come back to what you're saying. So keeping that in mind can be helpful. And then the next thing is 60% of people switch screens every 10 seconds. And I can believe that because I can think of looking at your phone, looking if you have a message, looking if you have a text, and it's compounded in the virtual environment that we're in now, because some people have, like I do, down in the corner of your screen, it pops up a notification if you get an email and you're listening to what the facilitator is saying, but, ooh, I got that email. I forgot I have that appointment. And again, you're distracted. So people, and another thing that happens is a lot of our participants are on the screen from home. So maybe somebody's rattling around in the kitchen, the pets are up in their lap. I love the pet therapy, but all of a sudden the dog is wagging his tail and it's covering the screen. And, the kids are climbing up in your lap. All that stuff is going on. So a lot of things competing for our attention. And then this one I thought was shocking, probably because I'm a person who doesn't use a cell phone very much. But people check their phones 96 times a day on average. Does anybody think they check their phone that much? Or I guess you wouldn't, maybe you wouldn't admit it. Maybe you wouldn't admit it, even though we are in a safe space.
I
But
feel like I always check my phone to check the time, and then I forget what time I just read, and I have to like pick it up immediately again to check the time.
oh yeah. Or you pick it
It's
up to
like my
check the
clock.
time and then you got a little dot on the text thing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Vicky said her husband raised his hand. So we've got other people checking their phones, right? You see it a lot. Like you're in a restaurant and there's two people having a meal and they're both on their phones. And you're thinking, well, why did they bother to come out together? If they're both, maybe they're texting each other. I don't know. But we certainly are an environment that has gotten into this instant connection, but not the face-to-face connection, the instant electronic connection. But I thought that was interesting information about um, people checking their phones so often. But
Cynthia, can I
so,
just add,
oh
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, but
not at
96
all.
times a day seemed a lot to me, but I did the math of 16 waking hours in a day. And when you do that, it's 6 times an hour. 100% I probably check my phone
Oh,
96 times a
wow.
day when you think about it only being 6 times in an hour.
So 6 times an hour is only once every 10 minutes,
Right.
right? So we probably do it much more than 96 times a day. So
Does it
that
say that's the
average is,
average? Yeah.
yeah, for people like me who don't check my phone for days at a time until somebody calls the landline and says, I left you a message 3 days ago. So, so that averages into that 96 times. Yeah, you're right. That's not that much, is it? Wow, interesting. So now we know we are competing. It was scary enough that we have all these participants together on the virtual screen, and now we're competing for their attention. So it's more important than ever as facilitators to want to draw them in and to be them keep them connected, because we know the more engaged they are, the more they're going to learn, and this information that we share with them is so vital and so important. And if they're successful in these programs, what it equates to is a healthier future for them. And if they continue through the whole program, they get all of the information that we have to share with them. So I know that you're all already doing a lot because you're already in this position with a challenge, and we already knew it was a challenge to be in a virtual environment. And so you're already in this position. So I know you're all going to have some great ideas of things you're already doing. So think about the things you're already doing to engage your participants, and then think about things that you might do in the future now that you're kind of spurred on with thinking about these things. So on our next slide, we're going to talk about what can help us with this. And these are such great ideas. And I'm hoping that some of you will have some ideas about each of these topics. So what helps? They tell us that active learning boosts retention by 40%. So instead of just lecturing to people, we know that the information is important and we want to get it out there. But instead of just lecturing to them, if we could get them actively involved, then they're going to remember. Remember, goldfish have a short memory, right, Melissa? And so we're going to help them to retain this important information that we share with them. So think about, what kinds of things are you doing now that help your participants to be actively involved in your program? That active learning aspect. Anything you're already doing?
Oh, Pamela has her hand up.
I know during my DPP classes, having one of the students read the story.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that can be really helpful because they hear a different voice instead of hearing your same voice all the time. And also they have to pay attention if they're reading it. So you've got at least one person who's actively involved, and then everybody else is kind of listening because it's something different. Yeah. Does anybody else do that? Have people read part of the program? Looks
Seeing a
like
lot of
Stacy has
hands.
her. Stacy?
Oh, is she frozen? Oh, I think you're
Oh,
muted,
maybe.
Stacy. That's what's going on.
Maybe. I don't know if she's frozen or if she just raised her hand in agreement.
Okay. Oh, there you go. I think it's
Maybe
maybe
she
a
is
frozen
frozen.
issue.
Oh, that
Yeah.
cold weather, you jinxed us when you said cold weather affects the internet. Anybody else have any thoughts on how we actively get our participants involved?
Monique?
I happen to have a really great group right now, and they just really enjoy sharing their own experiences. And so just opening up the floor and letting them tell a personal story connected to whatever it is we're talking about has worked really, really well. And then they piggyback off of each other.
Yeah.
And then I have to start watching the clock to make sure we have time to finish everything. But it's just, I've gotten some really great conversation that way.
Yeah. And then people feel involved, right? And they make that connection between the information and their real life experience. Nice. So the next thing that they suggest is short video lessons. Improve engagement by 50%. So even more than the active learning. And I was surprised by this because I always think if you're sitting and watching a video, then it's kind of passive. But apparently it's very helpful. And I know in the Prevent T2 program, especially in the first few sessions, and maybe that's to get the participants engaged at the beginning. Who knows? But the short video lessons, they have several links where you can click on and there's an explanation of diabetes, or there's one where there's a participant that they talk to, or and I know some of the other programs as well have short video lessons that we can use. And rather than thinking that as something that takes away from the group involvement, apparently it's something that can really help the group to feel engaged. There might be colors or music or animation. Has anybody used any of the video links in any of the programs? Looks like Pam has. Anybody else?
I see Danielle nodding too.
Good.
Joe has.
I'm always afraid if I try to share my screen, and I'm getting better at it now. Now that I can be the host on my meetings and I can have control of the screen. But I used to be afraid of trying to share. One time I shared a music video so they could all dance around, and I didn't know that I didn't have the sound on. And I think Walter did that once too. So it was just dancing around and nobody could hear anything. But the videos can be really helpful. Also, sometimes it's a little bit of a cumbersome topic. If you're trying to explain blood pressure or cholesterol or something, it can be a nice break for you to have a little video that explains it. And you don't have to worry about if you're explaining it correctly or if people understand. The next one I thought was interesting. Gamification. Isn't that a great word? I didn't know what it meant. I went and looked it up. And gamification, you probably all know what it means, but it means like playing some kind of a game. And that actually increases focus because by 30%, because if you're playing the game, you have to pay attention, right, to the rules or if it's your turn or what's going on. I know here we have a senior luncheon and they always have an activity between the luncheon. And sometimes they play Diabetes Jeopardy. And it's like a Jeopardy game, but all the questions relate to diabetes. So the people at the luncheon, you can imagine the assortment of people we have at the luncheon, and they're all so into the game and they want to win, and they're getting into answering these diabetes questions. They don't even realize how much they're learning about diabetes while they're playing the game, and it just works out to be great. So gamification. I don't know if anybody has any experience with that. Has anybody played any kind of a game with your groups to get them involved? Oh, Melissa has.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, and I should have looked this up before, Cynthia. I apologize. There's one of the in the DPP, they have like extra activities if you want to do it. And there was one where you had certain conditions and you had to put them in buckets of how they were impacted by diabetes. And so I literally just wrote them all out and would draw them like kind of out of a pile, and the group
Oh,
would work together to try to figure out which bucket it went in. It was incredibly engaging and also very funny. So they all kind of laughed and built like camaraderie together through doing that.
yeah.
It looks like Stacy might have unfrozen, so I do want to give her one more chance to see if she can come off mute. Stacy, are you there? No. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss her.
Hmm. That's a great idea, Melissa. And just getting people engaged, it forces you to pay attention. So with our short attention spans, and when we're thinking about something else and we're looking that something caught our eye, if you're playing a game, you got to pay attention. So that can be really helpful. So something to think about going forward. I know I played a game with my group when we were in person, and it seems so silly, but they loved it. It was when we were talking about activity, and I had balloons, and some of you I'm sure have done this, and they just all stand in a circle and try to keep the balloon from hitting the floor. And like you say, people get laughing and they start, and it just encourages this group connection that just makes it fun. So gamification, now that I have a new word in my vocabulary, is something that can really be helpful and really engage our participants. The next thing, this is tough. I think this is tough. Taking a break every 20 minutes will improve the performance by 25%. If you're in a class that's only an hour long, you hate to give up a minute because it goes by fast. But making the investment of a 2-minute break, even just step away for 2 minutes, watch the clock and come back in 2 minutes, people come back refreshed and more engaged. And I know some of you teach the classes that are 2 hours or an hour and a half, 2.5 hours long. What do you do about breaks? Do you give people breaks, or do you worry about using the time for the break? How
They're
do people
built
feel
into
about it?
the schedule, Cynthia.
Yeah, so you don't fret about it, right? You say we've got time on this. And some of the programs I know even say break 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. And it can be tempting, even though it's built into the schedule, it can be tempting to say, oh, we went over in discussing this, so we'll skip the break. But don't you find that the break is really important?
Yeah, I
Especially when
find
you
it's
can,
important for the leaders too,
yeah,
to get up and stretch and get a drink of water and, do whatever. 2.5 hours is a
yeah,
long time. It goes
yeah,
fast, but it's a long time.
yeah, it is a long time. That's for That's for sure. But that break time can be so important. And you notice too when people start to fade, and even as a facilitator, you start to fade. And then you're like, oh, I need, like you say, just walk down the hall or get a drink or whatever. So so that can be really helpful. And then the next thing is interactive content improves engagement by 30%. So you talked before about having somebody else read the story or have somebody else read part of the manual, part of the sections in the manual. We also have some of the manuals have fill in the blanks. So we can give people a couple minutes to fill in the blanks, and then they may share that information with us. So that can be really helpful. Any other thoughts about making it interactive? That was a great example you gave, Melissa, about putting the topics in the buckets.
I'm off mute now.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. For the active learning, which also the active learning, I always do it in person for the hypertension. And I think just having it on the screen and in Zoom it makes another a thing for them to be able to pay attention to, so that it's not just our voice. And then they've got the workbook, and they also have it on Zoom. So that's 3 ways,
Yeah.
that they can be involved, and then also give their input on whatever it is that, we're talking about or they're seeing online.
Yeah, and that multimedia, we all learn differently, right? Some of us learn by what we hear or by what we see. And when we think of our attention and losing focus, maybe the screen will catch our eye when we kind of stopped listening to the facilitator talk or whatever. So that's excellent. Thank you. And we talk about the asking the trainees to turn off their notifications. I know usually when we start a group, we have the ground rules. And one of the ground rules might be to silence your cell phone, or even reminding them that those little notifications that you got an email can be distracting. So people might want to shut that off while they're in the class. So that can be helpful, to just giving them gentle suggestions. We don't want to rule with an iron fist and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. We want it to be a comfortable environment, but we want to help them also to be able to pay attention and to learn. And then the last thing is incorporating movement into learning. And anytime people move around, what a difference it makes. I always feel guilty because in the Prevent T2, we have that one session on taking a fitness break. And we say you should take a fitness break every 30 minutes. And then invariably for the whole rest of the program, myself and the participants all sit still for a whole hour and never take that 30-minute fitness break. And in that, I've asked people to just walk away for 2 minutes and do whatever you want and then come back. And, what did you do? Well, I emptied the dishwasher, or I put the clothes in the dryer, or I went outside and walked around the house. And it's surprising how refreshed people feel, and they're ready to learn and they're ready to pay attention. So look at this, it's 1:29. See how the time flies? This is why nobody can ever take a break. So thank you so much, Melissa, for giving me a chance to share this information. I found it really helpful. I hope that you did too. And I know when I have my session on Thursday, I'm going to try and do something new to keep people engaged. And I hope that you'll all come up with some ideas or try some of the ones other people talked about. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next week or next month.
Okay.
Bye.